Imagine walking into a city unlike any you have ever seen. Wide streets. Towering walls. A magnificent royal palace. An artist creating works of bronze so beautiful that people would admire them for centuries. Now imagine that city in flames. Its treasures carried away. Its people watching as generations of history disappeared before their eyes. This is not a legend. It happened. But to understand why, we have to go back. Long before the fire. Long before foreign armies arrived. To a kingdom that grew deep within the forest of West Africa. A kingdom built on skill, trade, leadership, and extraordinary craftsmanship. For hundreds of years, the Kingdom of Benin was one of Africa's greatest civilizations. Its rulers governed a powerful kingdom. Its craftsmen created masterpieces that are still celebrated around the world. Its capital impressed visitors from distant lands. Yet today, many people have never heard its story. Welcome to the African Archive, where we bring Africa's history to life through careful research and powerful storytelling. If you enjoy discovering the people, kingdoms, and events that shaped our world, subscribe and join us as we uncover the stories history should never forget. In this documentary, we will explore the rise of the Kingdom of Benin. We will discover how its people built one of the most remarkable cities of its time. We will meet the skilled artists whose creations became famous across the world. And we will witness the tragic events of 1897 that changed the kingdom forever. But this is more than the story of a kingdom. It is the story of a people. A people whose legacy survived even after their city was attacked. A people whose art continues to inspire the world. And a history that still asks an important question. Can a civilization lose its treasures without losing its soul? This is the story of the Kingdom of Benin. Chapter 1. Where the forest became a kingdom. Long before the Kingdom of Benin became famous. Long before traders arrived from Europe. Long before its bronze sculptures amazed the world. There was a forest. Deep in what is now southern Nigeria, thick rainforests stretched for miles. Tall trees covered the land. Rivers flowed through the countryside. The forest provided food, water, and shelter for the people who lived there. These people were the Edo. For generations, they farmed the land. They hunted in the forest. They fished in the rivers. And they built small communities where families lived and worked together. Life was not always easy. The forest could be dangerous. Wild animals lived nearby. Heavy rains sometimes flooded the land. But the Edo people learned to live with nature instead of fighting against it. Over time, their villages grew. People traded with one another. Skilled craftsmen made tools from iron. Farmers produced enough food to support larger communities. Little by little, something began to change. The people needed more than villages. They needed leadership. According to Edo tradition, the people invited a prince named Oramian from the ancient Yoruba city of Ife to help bring order to the land. His time in Benin was short. But his son, Yuka, is remembered as the first Oba, or king, of Benin. From that moment, a new chapter in the region's history began. The Oba was more than a ruler. He was expected to unite the people, protect the kingdom, settle disputes, and guide Benin through times of peace and conflict. As each generation passed, the kingdom became stronger. Its farms produced more food. Its markets became busier. Its craftsmen became more skilled. Its leaders became more organized. Benin was no longer just a collection of villages hidden in the forest. It was becoming a powerful kingdom. But what truly set Benin apart was not only its kings. It was the people. Builders, farmers, blacksmiths, ivory carvers, bronze casters, merchants. Every person helped shape the kingdom's future. Together, they created a society that valued skill, hard work, and tradition. In time, visitors from distant lands would arrive and see something they never expected. A city unlike any they had imagined. A city of wide roads, grand palaces, towering walls, and remarkable works of art. In the next chapter, we'll step inside that city and discover why the Kingdom of Benin became one of the greatest civilizations in African history. Chapter 2. The city that amazed the world. Imagine arriving in the Kingdom of Benin hundreds of years ago. After days of traveling through thick forests, the trees begin to clear. Ahead of you stands a great city. Wide roads stretch into the distance. Homes are carefully arranged. Markets are full of people buying and selling goods. The royal palace rises above the city. And everywhere you look, there is order. This was Benin City. For many visitors, it was unlike anything they had expected to find in West Africa. In the 1400s and 1500s, Portuguese traders were among the first Europeans to visit the kingdom. Later, other travelers also wrote about what they saw. They described broad streets that were kept clean. They admired the size of the city. And they were impressed by how well it was organized. At the center of it all was the palace of the Oba. It was much more than a home. It was the heart of the kingdom. This was where important decisions were made, where ceremonies were held, where ambassadors from other lands were welcomed, and where skilled artists created some of the finest works of art in Africa. The Oba was deeply respected. His authority helped keep the kingdom united. But he did not rule alone. He worked with chiefs and advisors who helped govern the kingdom and settle disputes. Together, they created a government that kept Benin stable for centuries. The kingdom also became a center of trade. Merchants arrived with goods from nearby regions and from across the sea. They traded pepper, ivory, cloth, coral beads, and later, brass, which became one of the most important materials used by Benin's artists. Trade brought wealth. But it also brought new ideas, new friendships, and new challenges. As Benin grew richer, its craftsmen became even more skilled. Blacksmiths shaped iron into tools and weapons. Woodcarvers created beautiful objects for homes and palaces. But one group of artists became famous above all the others: the bronze casters. Using techniques passed down from one generation to the next, they created detailed plaques, statues, and royal portraits unlike anything the world had ever seen. Every piece told a story. Some celebrated great obas. Others honored warriors. Many recorded important moments in the kingdom's history. These were not simply decorations. They were history cast in metal. They preserved the memory of a people. The Kingdom of Benin had become more than a powerful state. It had become a center of art, culture, government, and innovation. Its influence reached far beyond its forest. But no kingdom remains unchanged forever. Far beyond Benin's borders, the world was changing. European powers were becoming stronger. Their interest in Africa was growing. And before long, those changes would reach the gates of Benin itself. Chapter 3. The Artist of Benin. What makes a civilization truly great? Is it the size of its army, the wealth of its rulers, or the buildings it leaves behind? For the Kingdom of Benin, the answer could be found in the hands of its artists. For hundreds of years, Benin became known for creating some of the finest works of art the world had ever seen. These artists did not work alone. Many belonged to special guilds. A guild was a group of skilled craftsmen who learned their trade from older masters. Knowledge was passed from one generation to the next. Fathers taught their sons. Masters trained apprentices. Over time, their skills became extraordinary. Among the most famous were the bronze casters. Their workshop stood close to the royal palace. Using a method known today as the lost wax casting process, they turned metal into works of remarkable beauty. It was careful work. First, an artist shaped the design in wax. Then it was covered with clay and heated. As the wax melted away, it left an empty space inside the mold. Molten brass was poured into that space. When the metal cooled and the clay was broken away, a new work of art appeared. Each piece was unique. No two were exactly alike. The artists created royal heads, plaques, figures of warriors, animals, and scenes from everyday life. Every detail had meaning. These artworks were more than decorations. They recorded history. They celebrated important events. They honored kings and queens. And they reminded each generation of the people who came before them. The palace itself became a living museum. Its walls were decorated with hundreds of bronze plaques. Together, they told the story of the kingdom. Today, these masterpieces are known around the world as the Benin Bronzes. But they were never meant to sit behind glass in museums. They were created for the people of Benin. They belong to the kingdom's history. The artists of Benin worked with more than bronze. They carved beautiful objects from ivory. They shaped wood into ceremonial sculptures. They made coral bead jewelry worn by the Oba and members of the royal court. Everything they created reflected the kingdom's skill, beliefs, and traditions. Their work became so admired that visitors carried stories of Benin's artists back to Europe. The kingdom's reputation spread far beyond West Africa. But as Benin's fame grew, so did foreign interest in its wealth. European nations were becoming more powerful. They wanted new markets, new resources, and greater control over trade. For many years, Benin remained independent. But the pressure was growing. Soon, a single event would change the kingdom forever. And one of Africa's greatest civilizations would face its greatest challenge. Chapter 4. The day the kingdom fell. For centuries, the kingdom of Benin had stood strong. Its rulers governed with authority. Its markets were busy. Its artists created works admired across the kingdom. And its people were proud of what they had built. But beyond Benin's forest, the world was changing. By the late 1800s, European countries were competing for control of Africa. This period became known as the Scramble for Africa. Powerful nations wanted land. They wanted natural resources. And they wanted control of trade. Britain was one of those nations. At first, British traders came to do business. But over time, British officials wanted more than trade. They wanted greater influence over the Kingdom of Benin. The Oba, Ovonramwen Nogbesai, wanted to protect his kingdom's independence. He carefully controlled trade with foreign merchants and tried to limit outside interference. This created tension between Benin and the British. In January 1897, a British delegation set out for Benin City. Despite warnings that an important religious festival was taking place and that the visit should be delayed, the group continued its journey. On the road to the city, they were attacked by Benin warriors. Several members of the delegation were killed. News of the attack quickly reached Britain. The British government responded with force. Just weeks later, a large military expedition was sent to Benin. Thousands of soldiers, armed with modern weapons, marched toward the kingdom. The fighting was fierce. But Benin's warriors could not match the firepower of the invading army. In February 1897, British forces entered Benin City. What happened next changed the kingdom forever. Much of the city was burned. The royal palace was looted. Thousands of priceless works of art were taken. Bronze plaques, royal heads, ivory carvings, ceremonial objects. Treasures that had told the story of the kingdom for centuries. They were packed into ships and carried away. Many were later sold to museums and private collectors across Europe and North America. The Oba was captured. He was removed from his throne and sent into exile. With that, the independent kingdom of Benin came to an end. For the people of Benin, the loss was more than political. They had lost part of their history. Their palace was gone. Their treasures were gone. Their king had been taken away. Yet something remarkable happened. Although the kingdom had fallen, its culture did not disappear. The Edo people kept their traditions alive. They continued to tell their stories. They continued to honor their ancestors. And they never forgot the masterpieces that had been carried far from home. Today, the events of 1897 remain one of the most important chapters in African history. Not only because a kingdom was conquered, but because the world is still asking an important question. Who do these treasures really belong to? That question has no simple answer. But it has started a conversation that continues to this day. And in our final 2 chapters, we'll explore how the legacy of the Kingdom of Benin lives on and why its story still matters to the world. Chapter 5. The treasures that left home. When British soldiers left Benin City in 1897, they did not leave empty-handed. They carried away thousands of treasures. Bronze plaques, royal heads, ivory carvings, coral bead regalia, ceremonial swords. Objects that had been part of the kingdom's history for centuries. These were not souvenirs. They were the memory of a civilization. Many of the artworks were sold to museums and collectors across Europe and North America. Some were placed on display. Others were kept in storage, far from the people who had created them. Visitors admired their beauty. Artists studied their craftsmanship. Historians praised their detail. The Benin Bronzes soon became famous around the world. But there was one question that never disappeared. How did they get there? For the people of Benin, the answer was clear. These works of art had not been given away. They had been taken during the attack on their city. For generations, families passed down stories of what had been lost. The bronzes were more than valuable objects. They carried the history of kings, the stories of great victories, the traditions of the Edo people. They connected each generation to the one before it. Without them, part of the kingdom's story had been scattered across the world. As the years passed, more people began asking another important question. Should the Benin Bronzes be returned? It was not an easy debate. Some museums argued that they had protected the artworks for more than a century. Others believed the bronzes could help educate people from every country. But many historians, cultural leaders, and members of the Edo community believed the bronzes belonged where they had been created. In Benin, the discussion grew louder. Around the world, museums began to look again at the history of their collections. Some admitted that many objects had been taken during times of war and colonial rule. Others started working with Nigeria to return pieces from their collections. In recent years, several museums and universities have returned Benin bronzes to Nigeria. Each return has been more than the transfer of an artwork. It has been the return of a piece of history, a piece of identity, a piece of home. Not every bronze has been returned. Many are still displayed in museums around the world. The conversation continues. And it raises questions that go far beyond Benin. Who owns history? Who should care for the treasures of the past? Can justice still be done more than 100 years after something was taken? These are not easy questions. But they remind us that history is never only about the past. It also shapes the present. The story of the Kingdom of Benin did not end when its city was attacked. Its art survived. Its culture survived. Its people survived. And today, its legacy is being rediscovered by a new generation. In our final chapter, we'll see why the Kingdom of Benin remains one of Africa's greatest civilizations, and why its story still matters to the world today. Chapter 6. A legacy that lives on. Today, the Kingdom of Benin is no longer the powerful empire it once was. Its armies no longer guard the forest. Its royal palace is no longer the same magnificent place that once welcomed visitors from across the world. And many of its greatest treasures are still far from home. But that is not the end of the story. Because a kingdom is more than its walls. It is more than its buildings. And it is more than the treasures it leaves behind. A kingdom lives on through its people. The Edo people never forgot who they were. They kept their traditions alive. They passed their history from one generation to the next. They continue to celebrate their culture. And they continue to honor the Oba, whose role remains an important symbol of unity and tradition today. Across Nigeria and around the world, the story of Benin is being told once again. Students are learning about its history. Artists are drawing inspiration from its masterpieces. Historians continue to uncover new details about its remarkable civilization. And museums are taking a fresh look at the objects that left Benin more than a century ago. Some of those treasures have already begun their journey home. Each one tells a story. Not only of loss, but of remembrance, of respect, and of a people reclaiming an important part of their heritage. The Kingdom of Benin also reminds us of something much bigger. For a long time, many people believed that Africa's greatest achievements began only after contact with Europe. But Benin tells a different story. It tells the story of a kingdom with skilled leaders, master artists, busy markets, international trade, advanced craftsmanship, and a well-organized government long before the colonial era. Its history challenges old ideas, and it invites us to see Africa through a clearer lens. Not as a continent waiting for history to happen, but as a continent that has helped shape history. Perhaps that is Benin's greatest legacy. Not the bronze plaques, not the ivory carvings, not even the great walls that once surrounded the city. Its greatest legacy is the reminder that every civilization has a story worth telling. Some stories are celebrated, others are forgotten, and some must be rediscovered. That is why history matters. Because when we understand the past, we better understand ourselves. As we come to the end of this journey, one question still remains. What other great African civilizations are waiting to be rediscovered? Thank you for joining us on the African Archive as we explore the remarkable story of the Kingdom of Benin. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to the African Archive and turn on notifications. Together, we'll continue uncovering the people, kingdoms, civilizations, and mysteries that shaped Africa and changed the world. Because history is not just about remembering the past. It is about understanding the present and inspiring the future. The Kingdom of Benin may have lost its city. It may have lost many of its treasures. But it never lost its legacy. And that legacy continues to shine. For Africa. And for the world.